Hey guys, John here, and welcome back to the Synthmaster 3 tutorial course. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the vector oscillator. Now, this oscillator is quite interesting because we can essentially mix 4 different oscillators in either one-dimension mode or two-dimension mode. Now, that might sound complicated at first, but it's actually rather simple once we start to take a closer look at it. So let's start up with a fresh preset and load up the vector oscillator. And as always, let's click this gear icon, go to replace with, and then down over here, let's select vector oscillator. Now, the first thing to notice is up here at the top of the oscillator, we have a mode option, and by default, this is going to be on 2D. We can also switch this to 1D. However, in 2D mode, we're going to notice that we have a waveform display with a number on each corner. So for now, let's go to 1D, and we're going to notice that these go to the center of each one of these lines. So essentially what we're looking at here is going to be 4 boxes with a waveform display and then 4 boxes with a number inside. Now, if we select any one of these waveforms, we can select a different waveform if we'd like to. However, for this example, let's stick with the sine wave and let's close this here. Now, these boxes with numbers inside, let's bring all of them down to 0. We can hover our mouse and then scroll downwards. And if we play some notes, we don't hear anything because they're all set to 0. Now, for this left one, let's bring this up to 1. And then we hear a note. Now, it's important to know that when we left-click the numbers, we have either integer or we have semitones. Now, semitones is probably the easiest to understand. Let's go to 1 here, and as we scroll up on our mouse wheel, they're basically just going up and down through semitones. Now, this can go to a max of 95, which is pretty crazy, so something to think about if you're getting creative with your patches. Now, the other one is going to be integer. So this, we're going to set it again to 0. We have nothing, and then let's bring it to the first one. Now we have something. Now, the integer is dealing with the harmonic series, which is basically whole number multiples of the fundamental frequency. So let's say, for example, we have 100 hertz times 1 is going to be the fundamental, so 100. And then 100 hertz times 2 is going to be 200. 100 hertz times 3 is going to be 300, and so on and so forth. If we follow that pattern and we do it enough, that's essentially how we create a saw wave. So that's the process that's going on under integer. So with that being said, now this is on the bottom left hand, this little axis here, this point. So if it's on the bottom left, we just have this 1. And no matter where we move this, we're only going to hear the 1. Yes, it's going to be different volumes, but essentially it's just going to be 1. However, let's go to this first one here, or this one on the bottom, and let's scroll up to 2. And we can see here now we have 2 tones. We have the first one, which is the fundamental, and then the second integer, which is, again, the harmonic series, so the second one in that. And as we slide this upwards, well, now we just hear the first one, and we slide it down. Now we hear an even blend of both of these. Now, for example, let's say we want to add yet another octave. So again, we want to double this from 2 to 4. So let's bring this up to 4. And then now, when it's up here on the top left, we're going to hear the first one and then this 4 right here. Now, let's say, for example, we want to hear 1, 2, and 4 at an even blend. You guessed it. We just bring this down here to the center. And we can see these all even right here. So at the bottom, it's going to be 1 and 2. At the top, it's going to be 1 and 4. And in the center, it's going to be all 3. So now let's incorporate this one over here. And again, let's do another doubling. So from 4 doubled is going to be 8. So let's bring it up like that here. And if we want to hear all 4 of these, we're just going to bring this here in the center. And then we go to, it's basically the same concept here on the right-hand side. So now, these are all sine waves, right? So if we added different types of waveforms and different types of modulation, maybe on the x-axis and the y-axis, as you notice, if we move this x left and right, this is going to move left and right. If we move the y-axis left and right, this is going to go up and down. So if we have interesting types of waveforms, if we have interesting types of modulation, this can be a really, really cool sounding oscillator. So hopefully now this process makes more sense to you. Now, if we understand this 1D, going to 2D isn't going to be really that much harder, right? Because here we understand what's going on and we click 2D and now these things move to the corner. So all that's really happening is that, for example, if we have this point and we bring it all the way to the top left, we only have our fundamental tone. We bring it all the way to the bottom right, we hear the doubling, which is just a single tone here. And then we go to the fourth one all the way to the bottom left. We hear that one as well. And then 8 here up on the top right. And we can always morph in between these. Now, the main difference is that let's say we have all four of these going at their own settings, their own intervals, or their own integers, or their semitones, or whatever. We can isolate individual ones in 2D mode. So up here on the top left is just one, right? So on and so forth. Or we can mix them. In 1D, that's not necessarily possible because we have all these on these sides. So no matter where we put this, we're going to have a combination of something. Whereas in the 2D mode, we can isolate individual ones. Now, again, if you're curious about the different options as far as free or sync or some of the drift or key tracking, check out the earlier videos where we covered all those knobs in detail. So hopefully now the vector oscillator makes more sense. I highly recommend to switch out these waveforms for not just sine waves, but maybe something a little bit more interesting, and then mess around with maybe the intervals or the semitones or something like that. You can really make some cool stuff with it. So thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something, and we'll see you in the next one.